Shalom, giving all praise to YAHAWASHI, SHAM, QADASH. I'm going to entitle this video, Vocab Malone doesn't understand the scriptures. He goes off again. He flip-flops. You let the man speak enough. Shut up. Let him speak. Let him speak. He always winds up putting his foot in his mouth. His foot's in his mouth. His feet in his mouth. Anyway, I clicked on this is the video. This is, I think, the last video he did, which is 20 hours ago, premiered 20 hours ago. As you can see, the title is Mark 7 proves Jesus, which that's not even his name, but I understand why he put that there. You know, when you look up the word Jesus, matter of fact, I'm gonna do that, declares all foods clean, meaning pork, shrimp, lobster, spiders, snakes, electric eels, blowfish. You can die from eating a blowfish, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, let's do this real quick. Let's see where we go with this. Let's see where the spirit takes me. And the main thing is vocab goes off on the scriptures. Vocab doesn't understand the scriptures. Okay, so let's take the word Jesus. And anytime you hear somebody that claims to be an expert on the Bible, a scholar, excuse me. Okay. So we're dealing with the word or the name Jesus. Anytime you deal with someone that claims to know the Bible, they claim they're expert in the Bible, they went to Bible school, they went to theological seminary. Give me a second here. I gotta find, give me a second. Just bear with me for a minute. Continue to bear with me. Okay, here I am. Okay, now let me go to Wikipedia. Okay, this is a beautiful page right here. Guyenne, G-O-G-O, Tresino. Remember that name, and you can pull this up. He's the one that came up with the concept of the letter J, which was in 1524. That's all I'm going to deal with. You know what I'm going to do? Let me leave that there. Let me best naturally. Let's see this. Okay, I'll go right here. Okay, let me put in Jesus. Jesus, baby Jesus. And Jesus doesn't mean anything. It's not an English word. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a 2-syllable sound. It's noise. Okay. Okay, it says, what's Jesus' full name? Are they going to say Mr. Jesus Christ? What was his father's name? Joe Christ. What was his mother's name? Mary Christ. What's Jesus' full name? Jesus' name in the Hebrew, because his name is in the Hebrew. You call his name, you hop on a time machine, go back to the time of the Lord and say, hey, Jesus. People are going to look at you. What the hell is this guy talking about? Even the Romans that spoke Greek and Latin. What is that? What kind of language is that? They didn't have the letter J back there, or the jaw sound, the J sound, jaw sound. Jesus' name in the Hebrew was Yeshua, close but no cigar, which translates to the English as Joshua. When you come across the word Joshua, which is Joshua, right? Let me do this. True name. The true name of Jesus. It says Yeshua. Jesus' name in the Hebrew was Yeshua, which translates to English as Jeshua, which, first of all, J is Latin, because this guy Tricino, whatever his name is, he was speaking either Latin or Latin. The language of Renaissance was Latin, because it came out of Spain. Okay, why Yeshua is actually the real name of Jesus, and they're not pronouncing it correctly. It's YAHAWASHI. Okay, Jesus' real name, Yahshua, evolved over millennia in many cases of translation that took it from Yahawashi, which is a little bit closer, to Isios or Jesus, to Jesus. So when these people calling me Jesus, baby Jesus, they're peons. Okay, so let me come back over here. Now, what I noticed, and this is maybe the 7th or 8th video that I clicked on Vocab's page, and there's always a commercial, and it's always some mosque. We have no masjid, which is, I believe it's a mosque. Let's find out. Let's go back over here. Well, it's a mosque. You know, you can click on it, whatever. But I said, let me let you see it. Why would this guy put up advertisements on his page when he's a Christian? Why would he allow YouTube to put up a commercial, a video commercial video of somebody wanting to collect money to build a mosque? Is this guy a crypto Muslim? Maybe he's an Arab in real life. Maybe he's lying about the whole Sicilian thing. I mean, is he a crypto Mohammedan, Mohammadite? was Islamic. Now you might say, well, I don't have control over that. Yeah, but if there was a commercial pushing abortion rights, and you should be against abortion because that's death, that's murder. Thou shalt not murder. Or my witchcraft. Let's say there's a commercial on advertisement for witch COVID. You would protest against it, right? It doesn't protest against this, man. That's why we don't allow commercials to come up, because we don't know what they're going to put up there. They don't give you a list as to what commercials you want to put up there. So, you know, at the end of the day, this is all about money anyway. He's making money with these commercials. So let me click on this. Okay, now I'm going to bring it back because he said a lot inside of, hell, not even 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes. He said a whole lot. And like I said, I'll say this, I'll read this again. Mark 7 proves Jesus declared all foods clean. Doesn't say that. So let's go back to the beginning.
They saw that some of his disciples ate with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands properly, holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they came from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. There are many other traditions that they observe, such as the washing of cups and pots and copper vessels and dining couches. And the Pharisees and the scribes asked him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands? I'll stop there and we'll pick back up. But
So let me say a few words on it, okay? I don't know what version of the Bible he's reading from. But if you go to the King James, it pretty much says the same thing on washing hands. Now, when you do the research on the tradition of washing the hands and pots and so forth, pans and pots, cups, what they did was, when you, like I said, when you do the research, like normally I go to the Bible Hub, and the first one I normally choose out of those commentaries is Cambridge for Schools and Colleges, because it's short. Then I check out others, and a lot of times they go against each other when you read those different commentaries. But anyway, what they did was, when you go back, see the world that we're living in today, let's say America, most of us are in America, compared to 2,000 years ago in the Middle East, was different. When we eat with knives and forks, right? And spoons, right? If you go to somebody's house and they dealing with a chick, she making some food, she gives you a plate of food, no knives, no forks, no spoons. What are you going to do? You're going to say, well, where's the knives at? Well, back in the ancient world, and they do that today in the Middle East, it was like a communal thing where you had the food in the middle, you had this entrees on the side or whatever, and you would eat with your hand. You grab some bread, you would dip it in whatever sauce, you would eat it, you would grab some bread. You've seen movies on that, documentaries. You would take the meat, you would take the bread, slice a piece of bread, you would take a piece of meat with some sauce on, you would eat it. So if you got 5 people there, there were people digging into the meat. So you had to, wash your hands so you don't get sick. When you read the account of our Lord, right before he was, arrested by the Roman authorities, the meal that was eaten, he had the disciples with him. And he said, how do you say? I'm not going to go to somebody and put in there the exact quote. He said the one that, I'm merely paraphrasing, the one that sticketh his hand to take bread or take food, he's the one that's going to betray me. Well, guess what? All of them were sticking their hands in the food. They were taking bread. That's where you get the word company from. Company means break with bread. Loosely translated, break bread. Let's break bread. That's an old tradition where you would take the bread, you would break off a piece with your hands, you would grab some meat, you would dip it in some sauce, and you would eat it. You would eat it, then you would take your hand, and meanwhile you have other people putting their hands in there. They didn't have their tradition back then, which they still do today in the Middle East, is they don't use knives and forks. Okay, so it was imperative that you wash your hands, and they say that the way they wash their hands is the way doctors wash their hands. If you go to a hospital, you watch look at a nurse or a doctor wash their hands. That's a way, supposedly, that they wash their hands according to that tradition. Okay, so we got that, because the scriptures is not about just reading scriptures and hitting the scripture. It's about picturing it. The Apostle Gabar always mentions that. It's about picturing it in your mind. What happened back then? How it take you picture it in your mind. It's a completely different world. Let me bring that back. I don't want this to be long, but it's going to probably be a long video, but that's okay too.
With some of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem, they saw that some of his disciples ate with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands properly, holding to the tradition of the elders.
Right, they said tradition and not law. It's not a law in 613. It's not a law that you got to wash your hands. And then he said, according to this translation, some of them didn't wash their hands. So I guess others washed their hands. Remember, these disciples were, for the most part, common men. The Most High didn't gather anyone from the seat of Moses, as they say. Let's listen on.
When they came from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. There are many other traditions that they observe, such as the washing of cups and pots and cover vessels and dining couches. The Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" I'll stop there and we'll pick back up, but let's explain what this part right here is about. So Pharisees, we tend to think of Pharisees as bad guys, but really, Jesus was closer theologically to the Pharisees than any other group in his day in Jerusalem.
And why was that? Because they were keeping the laws. And anytime our Lord dealt with the Pharisees and they would quote a law, he would come back with another law that counted that law. Like he healed, he referred to himself as the Son of God, or God, because he is a God. God just simply means judge. In a spiritual sense, it means like an angel. An angel is also a God. There are many gods. Men on the earth are called gods. Psalms 82:6. You were gods, but you shall die like men. So when they said, we're gonna kill you, we're gonna condemn you because you make yourself equal with God. And it says, he goes on, it says, and he quotes Psalms 82:6. He says, doesn't your law say that ye are gods? Like I said, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not going to go to it and read it. Somebody can put it in the comment section. So let's listen on.
Because they were at least concerned with upholding God's law for the people.
You heard what he said, and he's right. He said he mostly agreed with the scribes and the Pharisees. Let's hear that again. Therefore,
this part right here is about. So Pharisees, we tend to think of Pharisees as bad guys, but really, Jesus was closer theologically to the Pharisees than any other group in his day in Jerusalem.
and why was that? Because they called themselves following the laws. He called them hypocrites because in Matthew 23, he tells the disciples to follow the law. He tells the disciples, do as they say, but I'm paraphrasing again, Matthew 23, starting at the first verse, but don't do as they do. I'm paraphrasing again. Because they say and do not. They tell you to keep this law, that law, the other law, this commandment. But then the Lord said, but they don't keep the law themselves. But if they tell you to keep the law, yeah, keep the law. There's another precept, somebody can put in the comment section, where it says, unless ye, what's the term? Exceed the Pharisees. Now I'm gonna have to get that. Let me come over. As a matter of fact, let me do this. You have to I'll put it in this way. Let's see what comes up. Keep the laws better. I'll put in better than the I'm sorry. Pharisees. I'm spelling it wrong. I'm not a good speller. Let's see what comes up. All right, Matthew's 5, verse 20. It says, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. What does it mean by righteousness? Meaning doing the right thing. What is the right thing? The law. Except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees, scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Let's go to the blue letter on that. And you heard what Vocab said, right? He said, in not so many words, that he pretty much was in line with what the Pharisees were saying. Right, Matthew 23. Do as they say, but not as they do, because they say do, but they themselves do not do it. Let me see. Okay, blue letter. Let's go to the blue letter. This is the King James, Matthew 5, verse 20. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes. So are the scribes righteous? The Lord, this is the Lord saying. If you go to the red letter, this is the Lord speaking. Our Lord speaking. So is he saying that they're righteous? Well, what does he mean by them being righteous? Meaning they keep the laws of the scribes and Pharisees. Ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So what did he mean by that? Unless you keep the laws better, more so than the scribes and the Pharisees, which they're supposed to be masters of the law, it says you're not going to go to the kingdom of heaven. So what did the Lord say? He said you got to keep the laws. Let's go to Matthew 23. Then spake YAHAWASHI to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, meaning they're keeping the laws, for they say and do not. What do you mean by that? They tell you to keep the laws, but they were breaking the laws behind the scenes. They were hypocrites. But he said, yeah, no, I tell you to keep the laws. Yeah, keep the laws. You're not going to go in the kingdom of heaven unless you keep the laws. Now, do we need a savior? Yeah, because we broke James, James 2, James 2 and either 13 or 10. I believe it's 13, if I'm not mistaken. You know, it says, I'm paraphrasing again, that if you break one law, you're guilty of all. Therefore, you need a savior, you need a middleman. Okay, so where did I say I was going to go? Forget it. Let me come back over here. Oh, this is what I was going to do. Matthew 19. So did our Lord keep the laws of Moses, as they call it? There's the Most High laws that were given to Moses. Let's go down to the 16th verse. The rich young man. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? Now he's obviously an Israelite. And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? Why did the Lord say, Why callest thou me good? Because in a previous life, the Lord wasn't good. He went off. That life was during the time of Solomon. There is none good but one, that is God, which is the Father. God the Father, so you can understand, as opposed to God the Son. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the what? Keep the commandments. He saith unto him, which? YAHAWASHI said, Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery. What is it? What does it sound like? It sounds like the 10 Commandments, right? He went back to the so-called law of Moses. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, which means lying. Honor thy father and thy mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. But it goes deeper. He said, now you really want to get deep, take your riches and give it to the poor and follow me. He said, man, he had a lot of riches. It's hard to give away, go from being rich to being poor. So we got that out the way. So let's go back.
Because they were at least concerned with upholding God's law for the people. Now, most of them went up. What they did is they said, here's the law. We've got to keep it. We don't want to break it again. We don't want to go into captivity again. We don't want to get caught up in pagan idol worship again. So we got to keep the law. But to be sure they would try to keep it, they built this fence around it. I don't literally mean a fence. What I mean is laws around the law to make sure you don't break the law. There's an outer law almost. It's not really in the Bible, but it'll keep you extra safe. And it became
which are the traditions?
Over literalistic system that's not really what the spirit of the law was all about. So we see the Pharisees, and that's why sometimes, if you notice, sometimes Jesus compliments the Pharisees. You see sometimes where he actually gets some compliments.
Okay, I don't know what scripture he's talking about, but he agrees with what the Pharisees said. I gave you a couple of precepts for you churches out there that don't understand the Bible at all. Okay. Like I said, Matthew's one compliment, half a compliment is Matthew's 23. If they say keep the laws, keep the laws. But they don't keep the laws, just so you can know. But yes, they're right when they say keep the laws. He sort of kind of complimented them. All right, so let's listen on.
But they were better than the Sadducees. The Sadducees didn't even believe in the whole Old Testament. They only believed in the first 5 books. They didn't even believe there was going to be a resurrection. So Pharisees are better than Sadducees, at least. Then there was the secular Jews who didn't care about any of that. They just lived like they were Greeks. They didn't really, they just like, I'm gonna be a Greek, you know, you get a kid circumcised, I can eat all the pork. Now these are the stipulations of their day. We're in the new covenant, not the old covenant, but that's what they were to do at that time. A lot of Jews didn't care about it.
Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said? Let me bring it back.
They just lived like they were Greeks. They didn't like, then there was a secular Christian. So Pharisees are better than Sadducees at least. Then there was the secular Jews who didn't care about any of that. They just lived like they were Greeks. They didn't like, they just like, I'm gonna be a Greek, you know, you get a kid circumcised, I can eat all the pork. Now these are the stipulations of their day. We're in the new covenant, not the old covenant, but that's what they were to do at that time.
Good. I'm glad he said that. I'm glad he said that. Now, what scriptures come to mind? First scripture that popped in my mind when I heard him say that, which meant anytime you come across the word Greek, G-R-E-E-K, it's talking about Israelites that didn't necessarily care. There were some of them that following the Greek ways that knew that they were Israelites. This individual, we were talking about it last night in the car. Alexander Julius Tiberius Alexander. When you look that man up, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna look him up again. This is like the 20th time, and I believe he's the current Secretary of Defense, the big, tall black guy that you see standing around Biden sometime. I believe that's him. So let me go to that. Tiberius Julius Tiberius Julius Tiberius Alexander. He was a Jake. He was the head, well, he was the second in command. He was a top general under Titus. He was the one that really took this 70 AD, the whole 70 AD thing. He was the one that was behind it because Titus wasn't a experienced, warrior. This guy was, but Titus got the credit for it, which was the son of Vespasian. It says Tiberius Julius Alexander was an equestrian governor and general in the Roman army, born into a wealthy Jewish family of Alexandria, which is Egypt. You had a large community of Israelites living in Egypt, mainly in Alexandria. But abandoning or neglecting the Jewish religion, the laws. Did not Vocab just say that? He rose to become the second procurator of Judea under Claudius Caesar. And then when Claudius, died, you had Nero came, I believe, right after Claudius. And then you had Nero, then you had the four emperors, the year of the four emperors. Look that up. It'll mention Otho, Galba, Vitalis, and Vespasian. Inside of 1 year, you had four Caesars that died, that got killed, assassinated. One of them killed himself. It was either Otho or Galba. I believe it was Otho. I could be wrong. I'm not going to look for it. Somebody can put it. Like I said, when you're going into the scriptures and you read certain things, you got to go into history. If you go to Acts 18 chapter and you read about Claudius, and then you read on Claudius, you find out that Claudius was the Caesar or the emperor of Rome at that time, during the lifetime of Paul. And Christians, especially Jake, they don't understand the history. So when they read the scriptures, they don't picture it in their mind. So this backs up what Vocab just said. Let's go back to that. Let's listen to that again. Go back for it. Listen up.
So Pharisees are better than Sadducees, at least. Then there were the secular Jews who didn't care about any of that. They just lived like they were Greeks. They didn't like. They just like, I'm just be a Greek, you know. I need to get a kid circumcised. I can eat all the pork. Now this is.
So I just mentioned that this guy. There he goes. But he was a Jake. They got a cracker there. But what did it say? He said he didn't care for the law, statutes, and commandments. He wanted to be a Greco-Roman. But he was raised up as an Israelite. So here's another example that comes to mind. Acts 16. Acts 16:1. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus. Now, Timotheus was raised up by his grandmother and his mother. And they're mentioned in the scriptures. I believe either the grandmother or the mother was Lois, and I don't know if that was the grandmother or the mother, but they're mentioned in the scriptures. As a matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? Let me see if I can find it. Lois. I hope I spelled it right. I spelled it right. Okay, let me try this. Come on, man. Let me try it this way, see what happens. Okay. There we go. 2 Timothy 1 verse 5. When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first, he's talking to Timothy, which the unfeigned faith that is within thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice. And I am persuaded that in thee also. So Eunice, the mother of Timothy, was filled with faith because of her mother Lois. So that's what Paul. Let me read again. 2 Timothy 1 verse 5. When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice. So you had women that was strong believers. And then among the elect, you have women that are among the elect, not a part of the 144,000. And I am persuaded that in thee also, that you have the faith like your grandmother got the faith, and your mother got the faith. So now let's come back. So it says here, Acts 16:1. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus, the son of a certain woman. The woman was named Eunice, and the woman's mother was named Lois. And Paul praised these two women, which was a Jewish, meaning a Judite woman, and believed in what? In YAHAWASHI. But his father was a Greek. So now when you go back to what this guy Vocab said, he said, then you had the secular Jews. They were Greeks. They didn't circumcise their children. They ate pork. They did what they wanted. They didn't keep the laws. You just heard it from Vocab's mouth, right? So that's all we gotta read. So what was the father then? The father was a secular Jew. He could have known that he was a Jew, but they abandoned it like Alexander, Tiberius, Julius Tiberius Alexander. He could have abandoned it. Like I said, Julius Tiberius Alexander was raised up in an Israelite family. He was circumcised. He kept the laws. But when he grew up, he had a thing to be a Roman. He liked the power of the Roman military, or the Greco-Roman military. So I would guess that the same thing with Timothy's father. When I think of Timothy's father, what comes into my mind, I picture him in my mind as a man, as a centurion or a Roman soldier, because you had Israelites that were Roman soldiers too. When our Lord was being, beaten with stripes and spatted upon, I believe some of those Roman soldiers were actually Jakes that abandoned their religion. Because remember, Rome was a great melting pot like America. This is the second Rome. Okay, so we got that out the way. Now let's come back. Let's come back.
These are the stipulations of their day. We're under the new covenant, not the old covenant. But that's what they were to do at that time. I usually didn't care about that. Just give me the money, right? I mean, all people do that. Soft, principles, whatever. I'm not saying the Jewish thing. Some people are all anti-Semitic. That's not what I'm saying. But the Pharisees at least were trying, but it ended up a lot of times being a failed attempt. Now, what's going on? Jesus is not in Jerusalem, but these guys are called in the big dog. Do you see that? With some of the scribes who would come from where? Jerusalem. So it's like, Houston, we have a problem. Got this guy over here. We don't really know. Can you come down and you show him who's boss? That's they call them the big guns. That's what's going on here. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna get my manager, right? So
that's a good point that he made. Sometimes he makes good points. Now, what comes to mind is Matthew 3, where John the Baptist is in the wilderness baptizing people. And by the way, baptism is not in the New Testament. I mean, in the Old Testament, it's in the New Testament. All right. Do we have to baptize? No, we don't have to baptize. The Apostle Paul said, the Lord didn't send me to baptize. Can you baptize? Yeah. If we find a clean body of water and we got a bunch of brothers with us, I said, well, let's do a baptism. It's symbolic for being baptized by this truth. That's all. It's symbolic. The oil is symbolic. But in the Old Testament, they anointed your head with oil. There's no record. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I'll take correction. There's no record on baptism back there. They anointed with oil. In the New Testament, they anointed with oil before the Lord was buried, right? Didn't they anoint him with oils? With myrrh and frankincense? So baptism came about in the New Testament. And then he told those scribes and Pharisees, he said, who told you that you're going to flee from the damnation which is to come, merely paraphrasing. Then they wound up speaking to him, and the people asked him, are you Elijah? He said, no, because he didn't know he was Elijah. He said, I was one crying in the wilderness. What did he quote? What Isaiah said. I believe that's Isaiah 43. Like, again, when you come on the comment board, don't just say shalom, apostle, family. I mean, well, you women could do that, okay? But you men, you come on the comment board, put some scriptures in there, man. Go to the comment board and put some precepts in there. A lot of you do, some of you don't. Because there's really 3 classes going on. The class that I'm doing right now, then the comment section on the premiere of the live stream, and then when the video's done, there's another comment section. So there's 3 lessons from this one video. Got to take this thing seriously, man. Okay, where am I? I'm a little all over the place. Oh, you know what? Let me come back over here. Now, Vocab explained it. A lot of things that Vocab says are right on point. But then he goes off. So he just said that you had the you had secular Israelites, just like you got today, the small hats. You got small hats that'll grow the beard and wear the tzitzis and go to Jerusalem. And there's one sect that believes you can't go to Jerusalem. Like I said, in Muncie and in Brooklyn and Eastern Parkway, I used to run into them all the time. I still do. And I pick them up, and the men, I don't say too much of the women. I'll say how you doing, whatever. But the men, the Orthodox men, I'll have a conversation with them, a friendly conversation. I'll get a lot of information. So the one guy said there's the Hasidim, and then there's a little YAHAWASHI. That's way up in Harris, New York. That's way up. That's about, so from New York City, that's a good 2 hours, maybe a little bit more. And you go up there, you see houses with the Hebrew written on it. Same thing with Muncie. And then the same thing with certain parts of Brooklyn. So the guy broke it down to me that you have the Lubavitcher, you have the Hasidim, and one group believes you're supposed to be in Jerusalem to fulfill prophecy. The other group, which he's part of that other group, he said, no, we're not supposed to be in Israel at this time. And I believe he said, because the Lord's got to come back, and that's when we go back, which he's correct, but he's not the people. He's not our people. But then again, he could be, because you're going to have Israel scattered so throughout the whole planet that you're going to have small hats that look like small hats that are actually Israelites or one of the tribes. So let me put in the word Greek. Let me go to Greek. So now that we know, based upon what Vocab said, you had secular Israelites that didn't want to keep the laws. Then you had some that didn't know to keep the laws because their parents were forced to not teach their children, that they taught their children that, oh, you're a heathen, or you're this, or you're that. And that goes back to the time of the Maccabees and Antiochus Epiphanes. That's a whole nother subject. Got to do a video on that. And that goes into, focuses on how the Jews became Gentiles or Hellenized, because by the decree of Antiochus Epiphanes, he ordered them, don't let me hear you saying that you're a Jew. Don't circumcise your children, because I'm going to kill the children, I'm going to kill the women and the men that are behind that. You got to eat pork, you got to dress like a Greek, you got to speak Greek, and you got to follow the Greek gods. So let me click on this word. Okay, Greek. The word there is Hellene, as opposed to Grecian, which is Hellenistas. In Acts 6, now this is what it says: a Greek, either by nationality, whether a native of the mainland or of the Greek islands or colonies. In a wider sense, the name embraces all nations, not Jews, meaning not of the tribe of Judah, or they were Judah and they don't recognize themselves as being Judah, that made the language, custom, and learning of Greeks their own. What does that mean? Other nations followed the Greek way of life. They were Hellenized. They were Hellenized, like I said. And when they taught their children, they didn't teach them who they actually are. And it wasn't just Israelites, it was other nations. Like people come over here from another country and they don't want to have nothing to do with their country. It could have been a communist country. They don't even teach their children that they're from that country. Or they say, well, you're originally from this country, but you don't want to know nothing about that. We're Americans now. A lot of them change their names to American sounding names. It says the primary reference to a difference of religion and worship, meaning these Israelites that were either forced or decide to become Greco-Roman, they said, well, let me go all the way with it, man. Let me get a actual Greek woman so my children can start to look Greek. That's how these jakes back then thought. So now let's go to the word Greek. Let's see how many times. Okay, the word Greek is mentioned 27 times in 26 verses. And every time you see the word Greek, sometimes you see the word Gentiles. John 7, verse 35, when you go among the Gentiles to teach the Gentiles. Why? Because we are scattered among the Gentiles. John 12 and 20. And there were certain Greeks, meaning Israelites, among them that came up to worship at the feast. There was a feast that the Israelites had. So these were Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites, that started to think that they were Israelites. So they said, let me get back into our culture. Acts 14 and 1. And it came to pass in Iconium that they went both together into the temple, word there should be temple, of the Jew, YAHAWAH, and so spake that a great multitude both of Jews and also of Greeks believed. So what does it mean by Greeks? Go back to what Vocab just said. You had secular jakes as Jews that didn't want it. He said that didn't want to keep the Sabbath. They wanted to eat pork. They wanted to call their kids Greek. They gave them Greek names. Look, when you go to Romans, the 16th chapter, it mentions a list of names, and they're all Greek or Greco-Roman names that Paul was teaching in Rome. These were Israelites that were raised up as Greeks or heathen. So anytime you come across the word heathen in the New Testament, and even in the Old Testament, Gentiles, Isaiah 11, it speaks about the Gentiles, a light unto the Gentiles in the Old Testament. That's talking, those Gentiles are Israelites. Acts 16 and 1. It's also in Acts 16 and 3. Acts 17 and 4. And some of them believed and consorted with Paul and Silas, and of the devout Greeks, a great multitude, and of the chief women, not a few. The devout Greeks is talking about what? These Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites or didn't accept that they were Israelites, who had children that now accept the fact that they're the Israelites. What did the Apostle Paul say in Colossians 2, verse 16? Paraphrasing, don't worry, don't let nobody judge you about keeping all these laws, which is a shadow of things to come. Things to come. Meaning the kingdom, we're going to keep the laws. So don't get hung up on keeping all these laws. The main thing you should focus on is YAHAWASHI. And then as you build, you can keep the law. That's why you have this council called the Jerusalem Council in Acts the 15th chapter, where you had some, was it Pharisees, I believe, that believed in YAHAWASHI, but they were raised up as Israelites. And they said, look, why do you people come into Passover when they're not circumcised? So that was an important question. So they had to get with the heads of Peter, James, the heads of the disciples. And what they did was they said, no, you don't got to circumcise yourself. But there's certain things you can't do. Speaks about the blood, meaning you got to drain the blood, don't commit adultery, and so forth. Acts 18 and 4, and he reasoned that in this temple, it should be temple every Sabbath. Sabbath is not Friday, sundown, and Saturday, sundown. It's based upon a new moon. And persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. Who are the Greeks? Israelites that were coming back into who they were. Perfect example, Cornelius. Cornelius was an Israelite. So I'm going to read no more. Look at that. Galatians 3, verse 28. There is neither Jew or Greek, meaning you had Jews that were born as Israelites, circumcised on the 8th day if you were a male child. You kept the laws, you didn't eat pork and all that. Then you had the Greeks, which are Israelites that didn't necessarily know they were Israelites. Perfect example, Cornelius. So what did Cornelius started doing? I would think that he started keeping the laws, slowly started keeping the laws. So that's what it means. It means Israelites, whether you knew that you were Israelites or born as Israelites, or Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites, but your line went back to Israelites. That's what Romans in 9 chapter is all about. Of whom, as concerning the flesh, the Messiah came. So now let's go back.
Scribes copied the law. There was no, hit button, control, paste, all that stuff. So as they copied the Bible, they learned the Bible. And so they were like they knew the text a lot of times back and forth. That's why it's kind of funny Jesus would say, have you not read? He's asking scribes, have you not read the Bible? It's
right. There he goes again. He's saying that what we say. He said, have you not read? Meaning, what was there when 2,000 years ago? Was the book of Mark there? Nope. Was the book of Matthew there? Nope. Was the book of Revelation there? Nope. Was the book of Acts written? Nope. The only thing that they had was the laws of Moses, the writings, and the prophets. So anytime he said, have you not read? He's going back to the law. And if you put in the word Moses and just go to the New Testament scriptures, it's our Lord talking about law. And Moses said this. Why would he keep quoting Moses? Why would he keep quoting Moses? Because our Lord said, in order for you to enter into the kingdom, you have to keep the laws. What laws? Now, are we going to be saved by keeping the laws? No, because we're guilty. If you're guilty of one law in James, you're guilty of all of them. So you're condemned just on one law. You break the Sabbath. You don't do nothing wrong. You break the Sabbath. Breaking the Sabbath, the penalty for breaking the Sabbath is death, right? The penalty for adultery is death. There were certain laws under death, but there was other laws where you had to clean yourself. If you were defiled, you lay with a woman, the woman and yourself become defiled, so you can't go to the temple. You go before a dead body, you're defiled. And like if you touch a woman that was on a period, you were defiled. If you went before a dead body, you were defiled. And most of them was until the evening. So you can't have sex on the Sabbath because you're worshiping the Most High on that day. So how are you going to defile yourself by having sex? Let's listen to a little bit more.
Boy saying, don't you understand what you're copying? So here they are, and they're watching, right? And what do they see? Some of the disciples didn't wash their hands. Now you may think, oh, we should all wash our hands. Cleanliness and next to godliness. This is not about hygiene. The discussion is not about hygiene. It's about a ritual purification situation. Yes. So there's a certain,
which was about hygiene, but it was a tradition. I don't know how the hell he gonna crowbar this in. Mark 7 proves Jesus declared all foods clean. There was no mention of food. It was the only thing they mentioned was dirt on your hand.
certain way where you take like a drop of enough water to fill like half like an eggshell, and then you'd have to hold your hands down, and then you would pour it over there, and then you had to let it drip down, and then you had to make sure it dripped off the wrist, or maybe it's the other way around. You get it up first, but you had to do both ways. Same thing, you had to off the wrist.
What the doctors and that's what they say, what the doctors and nurses do, how they wash their hands. There's a certain way they, there's a certain, look it up on YouTube, how a doctor or nurse washes their hands. As a matter of fact, you know what I'm gonna do? No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that.
Couldn't go down with the elbow, and then you had to take one hand that's clean and wash the other like this. The whole thing, right? All of that's not really in the scripture, but there is a place where the Levites, who are sort of the priestly class of Israel, are instructed to do certain ritualistic hand washing, right? What the Pharisees said basically was like, hey, well, it's good enough for them, all Israel should do it. So let's all ritualistically wash our hands in this manner. Why though? Well, let's look here. See in chapter 3, verse 3, where it's in parentheses. Now in Greek, there's not parentheses, but you can tell by the sense of what's being written if it's a parenthetical comment. What this means is Mark is explaining it to people who did not live in that day. So if you're not in Jerusalem, you don't know about all these crazy rituals and stuff. So if you're reading it, say, in Rome, most likely Mark is written from Rome, especially to Roman Christians, you don't know about this.
You see how he snuck that in, that snake, snuck that in? He's speaking to Roman Christians. The word should be Israelites. He's speaking to Israelites living in Rome.
So Mark explains it, and look what he says. For the Pharisees and all the Jews, he's saying by that, Jews have got cut up by and large with the Pharisaic traditions. They're like, hey, we're going to keep God's law. The Pharisees are the teachers, so we do what they do, right? Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands. Notice it properly. There's a certain thing with it. Holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they come to the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. Marketplace, what's the big deal about the marketplace? What you gonna run into there? You gonna swap me, what you gonna run into? And if you're a Jew in the first century, who was especially dirty to you? If you're Jew, first century, who do you think's extra dirty? Gentiles, not Jews, right? Have you heard about what Gentiles eat? They eat blood sausages, pig stuff. You have to shake hands with one and you give them shekels or something? Then all right, probably. You gotta wash your hands coming to kind of little Gentiles.
He's right. He said denarius is the Roman coin because they were under the Roman rule. All right. Because he said shekels. Then he went to denarius, Roman coin.
There might have been some rodents scurrying around or something, so you might have touched an unclean animal. That's it. He said it, not me. I don't know. So there was an extra concern, especially from the marketplace, basically because you might run into Gentiles and reptiles. By reptiles, I mean unclean classes of animals. That's what I'm saying by that. So that was a big deal. That's why Jews wouldn't even eat with Gentiles during this time. Holding the traditional laws when they come to the market, they do not eat unless they wash.
Good point he made. That's why they don't eat with the Gentiles. Now, what precept came to mind is what is that? Galatians 2, is it? Galatians 2, where the Apostle Paul stood Peter in face to face, and he basically called him a hypocrite because he would eat with the Gentiles, meaning the Israelites that were coming into the fold. They were keeping their custom. They wouldn't washing their hands. They wouldn't eating traditionally, whatever. So he was rubbing elbows with him, so to speak. And then when he saw the actual Israelites that were born as Israelites, seeing him coming, he would get up and act like he wasn't with them. Same thing with Acts, the 6th chapter about the Grecian woman, widows or whatever. I'm not going to read it. Somebody put it in the description. How they wasn't getting dealt with the daily administration, right? So what did the heads do, starting with Peter? They set up 7 men. And by the way, those 7 men, they mentioned their names. They all had Greek names. They weren't Hebrews. They came into it from a Gentile lifestyle. Same with Romans 16. Let's listen on.
There are many other traditions that they observe. So you see Mark is almost saying these folks are obsessed, such as the washing of cups and pots and cover vessels and dining chapters, and there's specific ways you had to do it. There's even in the rabbinical literature a story of a rabbi who was excommunicated from Israel for not properly washing in this way. Meaning, even though it's not something that you can read in the Bible that you should kick someone out for, they would actually go as far as to kick someone out for not doing in this prescribed way, even though it was never actually prescribed for God's people. So it was a big deal because the disciples weren't doing this. So watch, here's what happened.
It doesn't necessarily mean that the disciples wasn't washing their hands. They were not washing their hands traditionally based upon the elders. And we do that today. You go in there, you go to the bathroom, 3 seconds, you take some soap, wash your hands real quick, rinse it off, dry it off, and you eat. That wasn't the traditional way of washing your hands. And that act of washing your hands traditionally could have took about 5 minutes. It was a tradition. So like I said, I don't know how this guy's going to crowbar in eating any food. Didn't mention nothing about food. It mentioned everything about dirt on the hands, washing hands. That's what that Mark 7 is talking about. I think that's the first 11 verses of Mark 7.
You're going to see progression. Jesus likes to up the ante. Jesus was meek and mild, but he also was a man of steel. What I mean is they brought him a problem. And if you read this carefully, you'll see here's what happened. Jesus is basically saying, Leo, please don't run. Okay? I don't tell you again, buddy. He's basically saying, hey, you want to bring me a problem about my disciples not washing their hands? I'll do you one better. I'm going to talk about clean and unclean foods. I'm going to take it to a whole nother level. Jesus was a risk taker in that way. So he brought it to them. Instead of being on the defensive, he's like, oh yeah? And I'm going to show you that here. So this is where it starts. And this is important. People have extra rituals that they put on top of scripture. Rituals and tradition are okay. The Bible never tells us how to line up for communion, does it? It never says serve grape juice and wine, does it? It doesn't say exactly what to do, does it?
If they do communion, that means it's still Roman Catholic. Remember, they're Reformed Roman Catholic. So in essence, this guy is a Roman Catholic. They just disagree with certain things of the Roman Catholic faith. That's why they broke off. Protestants, they protested against the Roman Catholic, but they're still at heart Roman Catholics.
Does it tell you what kind of grape juice or wine to buy, does it? Doesn't say that stuff. So we develop certain ways, and that's cool. And if someone says, here's the way to do it, you got to do it this way. If you don't, then we start running into problems. And that happens a lot. We put tradition on top of things. What is so bad is in Roman Catholicism, they say they have the power to make those traditions on par with scripture. It's called a dogmatic belief. If something's dogma, it means if you are a good Roman Catholic, you are required to believe it. Let me tell you about 2 dogmatic beliefs. The reason why I bring these up, because this is still happening today. It's a very practical thing. People say, please God, you got to do this. You say, that's not in the Bible. Well, guess what? We get to declare that it is equal to God's scripture, so you got to do it. You have to believe, if you're Roman Catholic, dogmatically, in something called the bodily assumption of Mary. That Mary, when she died, did not die. She was assumed bodily up to heaven. Sounds kind of like Jesus. But that ain't right. You know, they didn't believe that until either, I think this, which one was like in the 1850s or 1950s, I forget. It's a relatively recent belief. That's a big thing you got to believe. You know,
Which is right. That's not in the scriptures. That's one of the things they protested against. You know, God, Mary being the mother of God, she's sitting up there, by the, in between the Most High and the Son and all that. Yeah, that's that Christian dogma. Dogma just means decree. Dogma means this. We say you got to do it, you got to do it. There's a lot of dogma in the IUIC. Oh, you can't have more than one woman, or we'll kick you out, or whatever they're going to do. What else do they do? Well, that's the main thing. So in a way, the IUIC is like Roman Catholics. There's a lot of dogma in the IUIC. You can't, you gotta be married. Now, I don't know how their marriage ceremony is. I don't know if they're 501c3. So I don't know if they have a license, but you know what the law says about marriage in America? If you receive a license in New York to be married to a woman, man and a woman, if you happen to go on a vacation to, let's say, Texas, you have sex, the authorities know that you have sex, they can arrest you because you're not licensed to be married in that state. You're only licensed to be married in New York. So if you want to get technical, you're committing, let's call it fornication, adultery, whatever you want to call it. You can actually be arrested. So you want to get technical, a man or woman is not married unless they're married in the state. When is a man and a woman married? With the act of sex. The first man, the man who lays with the woman the first time, no man lay with that woman. Guess what? That man is in the spirit and agrees in the spiritual realm that they're married now. So she goes with another man. She becomes what? She becomes a harlot, or harlot is a word. A harlot. Now it says the priest, if a priest has a daughter and she plays a harlot, what are you supposed to do according to the law? You're supposed to burn her. So if you want to get technical about the law, you're supposed to burn that daughter.
What else? Papal infallibility. Whenever the Pope speaks ex cathedra on matters of doctrine of faith, it is as good as God's word. It doesn't mean everything the Pope says, Catholics don't believe everything the Pope says is perfect. They don't think he's perfect. They're saying whoever speaks in.
That's why we all know this, that this is big in the RCC, sexual molestation of boys and girls, and all kind of debaucherous things go on. And these guys don't do a day in jail. They might pay out. Why? Because the Pope said, no, it's all right. It's all right. I don't care if you. So that's dogma. And this is what these Christians do. And this man, he's the subject of dogma too. Because when I went into a video concerning hell is not the grave, he said, no, hell is the grave. If you read this book, and he got together with, this is years ago, 2017 maybe. He got with Jesus is the Word. And they did a video. I did the video, I believe, on a Thursday night. And then they did a counter to my video on a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken. It was around Thursday, Friday. But anyway, they did a thing. And what this guy did, Vocab did, see, if you go to this book, he'll reach and go, see, this book written by so-and-so explains it. But now if you go to that book, because he's going by that's dogma. That's dogma. That's all that is. That's dogma. A reincarnation. He can't see that reincarnation is biblical because of dogma. They said, nope, reincarnation is not. That's East Indian. That's the first thing he says. And he loses sleep. And that's why he gained weight in some years, because he's losing sleep, man. He's in betwixt two,
certain capacities, then it is infallible. That's what they teach, right? That's a newer doctrine. You have to believe that. That means Pope could say, here's the way you have to interpret this verse, and you have to believe it. That's a problem. Going on back then still happens today. Watch what Jesus says. Now notice they tried to do an end around. They didn't come after Jesus directly. They said, what are your disciples? How do they do that? Verse 6, and he said to them, well, did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites? So right away, right?
And I'm going to say this is a classic Christian. You don't see, I don't know if he's taking notes or he's checking his texts, his DMs and texting back and forth. She didn't have a paper. Where's the rest of the people at? If they were truly students of the scriptures, and they say this guy is an authority, they would be taking notes.
Jesus immediately takes two. First of all, he answers in scripture. And second of all, it's almost like sarcastic, like Isaiah wrote pretty good about you guys, you hypocrites, right? Well, did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites as it is written? So notice, tradition of elders versus Isaiah, which is the word of God. You see the sources of authority here being brought to bear. This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrine the commandments of men. So this is something you have to believe infallibly, teaching as doctrine the commandments of men. But it's real.
And all these churches do that. The Reformed Church, the Protestants, the Calvinists, the Baptists, the Methodists. Don't even let me get into the so-called black church. That's the biggest joke going. I mean, that's a comedy. That's a comedy. You go in stupid and you go into dumb, you come out even dumb. Dumb and dumber. You go in dumb, you come out dumber.
Really meant for men. Now here's the thing, we got to watch out when we do this, because yes, I talk about Rome, and yes, I talk about Pharisees, but all of us are hypocritical at some time or another. So it's good to take the text and also turn it in ourselves. Have you ever honored God with your lips, but your heart is far from him? We do that, don't we? So sometimes who's the Pharisee? We're the Pharisee. Or sometimes, even though we don't say, hey, I make this tradition, you know, I make it binding with scripture. Sometimes we feel like as if we do some outward thing, it's like that in some way it equals our holiness. We can get caught up in these traps ourselves. Yes, this is a struggle we'll deal with because we're fellow humans. So a prayer we could say is, Lord, help me not to be the gal who Isaiah is talking about. Because we all have the danger of being caught up in Phariseeism. And we got to repent from that. But I guarantee you, all of us have done that. Honored God with our lips, our hearts are firm from him. Right? We've done that. But guess what? Pharisees get saved too, don't they? Nicodemus, right? Joseph of Arimathea. People honor you with their lips, their hearts are from me, and vain do they worship me, teach the doctrine of them. Verse 7 continues. Verse 8 now. You leave the commandment of God and hold to the tradition of men. He's saying, you're trying to bring the tradition of men, but what you do...
Let me jump a little bit.
Example. So Jesus takes the charge, and then he's going to give them an example of them doing this. Watch this. Verse 9, and he said to them, you have a fine way, commandment of God, in order to establish your tradition. Notice he's saying your mother, that's the fifth commandment, right? And whoever reviles father or mother must surely die. The other one says, if you don't do this, it's that your mother entails way. That's what he's saying, entails part of that.
I'm jumping, 5 seconds, forward, so he can get to the point of the that the Lord declared all foods clean.
And again, but you say, notice father or mother, that's a Hebrew word that means given to God. And notice, it's a parenthetical statement, looks like Mark made. He's explaining it to Gentiles who wouldn't know Hebrew. He's saying that means given to God. Jewish readers who don't know Hebrew, they would know, saying it means given to God. No longer permitted him to do anything for his father or mother, thus making and many such things and many in America means like I could do this all day. Says, yeah, I know, because it's something he would say because it's him. Jesus is basically saying I could do this all day. And many such things you do. I can do. But they would say it's Mom, Dad. No, I really want to help you out, see what's happening. I've dedicated my finances to God. I made a vow, and it's unalterable. So whatever I would have, I can't help you out from God. But then they had all these loopholes. What they would do is they would say, well, you didn't have to immediately give it. You can hold on to it. You give them a small percentage. So basically, you can hold on to the money to your parents for them. Is whatever you do not for. Clear command. Don't even really follow. Do you want to know the root of the problem? Because check this out. If you think you're clean and pure, it's the outside things you got to stay away from, right? Because you're clean and pure. So watch out from the intrusion inside and make my clean and pure side things with dilute them. That's the thinking. Jesus is going to say that's backwards. The unclean and impure doesn't come from the outside. That's not the source of it. It comes from the inside with everybody. Right. Not just Pharisees, but everyone sitting here. No one made you do anything. right? And he called the people to him again. He's like, let's keep on talking about this. Verse 14. Hear me, all of you, and understand. So Pharisees and everybody else, let's have this. What he's basically saying is, Pharisees, I'm glad you asked that question. This is a good learning moment. That's what he's saying right there. So we're going to talk about the source of impurities. There is nothing outside a person that by going into him can defile him. But the things that come out of a person are what defile him. Yeah. Verse 17. And when he had entered the house and left the people. So notice, verse 14 and 15 and 16 are like a little spot where he's continuing the conversation, not just answering the Pharisees, but telling everybody, whoever's gathered. But now this next verse is a little bit different. The location and the audience change a little bit. And Mark's taking you through all of them. See verse 17? And when he had entered the house. So this is someplace they're staying or they're going to eat, something like that. But they're no longer out in the public. Now they're entering into a house. And left the people. See that? So this is a different context. His disciples asked him about the parable. So they're considering this a parable. They're basically like, hey, I know you said back there, what does that mean? Because they're thinking all kinds of things. Because it almost seems like you're downplaying the food laws, maybe. What exactly you're saying? I mean, it seems kind of clear what Jesus is saying, but remember how they're taught, and Jesus is reprioritizing things, right? And they're asking further, and they're like, I didn't quite understand that. Help me out. Jesus, verse 18. Sometimes he was a hard master. He says, and he said to them, then are you also without understanding? He's saying, why are you as dumb as the Pharisees? That's basically what he's saying. But he's like, I'll help you out. I'll break it down, right? I think he does that to challenge them. He's just constantly challenging them is what he's doing, right? Good teacher will do that. Now notice he asked the question, do you not see that whatever goes into a person from outside cannot defile him?
What is the Lord talking about? We go to Mark 7 from the first verse, read down. He's talking about the tradition of washing hands because there's dirt on your hands. So he's breaking it down to them that if that dirt goes into your mouth, it comes out the backside. Didn't say nothing about pork, nothing about any unclean animals. And then if that's the case, you can pick up about a glass bottle and eat that shit, and use the scriptures. A tin can. You can get a bag of potato chips and eat the potato chips and eat the plastic bag of the potato chips, that was in that bag. That's stupidity, man. Let's listen. He was talking about the dirt that's on your hands that you didn't traditionally wash. And I believe they washed their hands. It said some of them. That's what that translation said. Let's listen on.
Since it enters not his heart, but his stomach, and is expelled. What is
the Lord talking about? The subject matter is the dirt that's on your hands that you didn't properly clean your hands traditionally.
Saying is there's something called the heart, which is not the physical reality of your heart. They understood that. It's the seat of your emotions, the center of you, the inner person of your thought life, all that kind of stuff, whatever you want to say about it, right? He's saying that's the source of these issues, sort of your moral center, but yet food goes into your stomach. So he bypassed the conversation just about washing hands because that's about what's clean and unclean. Now he's transitioning to the source of impurity and broadening out to things that come into you. Because remember, that's why they wash hands.
Talking about dirt. It was talking about dirt. It wasn't talking about ham and eel and there's a story that we go to this one Indian restaurant most of the time, and sometimes they'll give us extra stuff, like an extra dish. So Apostle Ramlab looked at it, and I said, what does it look like? He said, it looks like chicken. Bishop Sakaran tasted and said, yeah, that's chicken. So I said, I'll eat it in a couple of days. So I heated it up, ate it. It looked like chicken. When it entered my mouth, it tasted like fish. I said, this is fish. And I'm thinking, what if his catfish was ill and I spit it out? Part of it goes down into my system, right? So, you know, if it's catfish, I broke a law. So what I did was I called Bishop Sakaran and I said, that was fish that they gave you. And so what we did was we went back down there, and he said, that dish that you gave me, what was that? He said, it's fish. He said, what kind of fish is that? And he mentioned some name. I guess somewhere in Asia, that's what the fish is called. So he said, the fish is called this. So I said, look, go find out if that fish that fish is clean or unclean. So Apostle Gabar went into Google, is this particular fish, blah, blah, blah. I said, get to the part with the skin. What kind of skin? It says that skin had scales. So I said, okay, that's a clean fish. I'm good. So I said, next time they give you something, extra, I'd ask them what it is. Say, what is this? This fish. This is so-and-so fish. Go to the Google, look up the fish. If it has scales and fins, then it's clean fish. Even though I've never heard of that fish, that particular type of fish. Okay, so that's not what this is talking about. It's talking about dirt. It's talking about the tradition of washing your hands. The Lord said, look, you're going by the tradition of your elders, which has nothing to do with the law. So when the disciples came to them to the side and said, what does this mean? Is it a parable? What does this mean? So he's talking about dirt. He's not talking about, well, look, man, bottom line, you can eat anything you want. If you really want to get technical, you can eat anything you want, as long as you pray over that. Now I'm going to show you that that's not the case, because I'm going to go to Acts the 10th chapter. Sorry for making this a little bit long, but
they're worried about what would come in. So they have all these elaborate things. He's saying that's not the real concern. And he's saying, besides, when it goes into your stomach, which literal stomach is a non-moral agent, it gets expelled out. The little Greek there is actually into the latrine.
But it actually goes in the heart, meaning the mind. Hebrew word for heart is mind. Love, which is mind. But that food goes into your heart. That's why people have heart disease. Heart disease stems from what? A bad diet, cholesterol, and so forth.
Little Greek says into the latrine. That means it goes in the body. That's what he's saying. Now, here's the thing. Has not Mark already given us, at least 2 times that I can see, parenthetical statements where he explains what is happening in the text? He's already done that, right? Is Mark a divinely inspired gospel author? Yes, he is. God used him, the Holy Spirit used him to write God's word so we have an accurate historical account that's authoritative. He's going to do it again. It's a parenthetical comment that is saying basically this. You guys hear what Jesus just said? I'm now going to give you the application and full implication of what Jesus just said. And this is important for a few reasons. Historically, we understand that the Gospel of Mark's source was Peter. If you read Mark, if you pay careful attention, right in the beginning, Peter is mentioned prominently. And if you read the very end of Mark, Peter is featured prominently again. It's what scholars call a Petrin inclusio. It just means like an envelope that gets sealed up, and the contents in the front and the back are there. So it has like a sort of poetic balance. And it's a way that actually ancient writers would sometimes kind of tip their hat to say, here's my source. And so we have historical information from early church fathers and things like that, that Peter was the one who relayed to John Mark, as the gospel writer's name, what happened. And so you notice that it's sort of action oriented, kind of like Peter was. Peter says and does things he doesn't do in the other gospels. It's Peter focused. It makes sense. The point is, it's like Peter's relaying this to John Mark.
Yeah, please get to the point so I can say what I got to say and close this thing. We just stretch this thing out. This should have took maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes at top to explain this whole thing.
And they fully understand now the implication, because They didn't write this. It doesn't seem the second Jesus said this. As far as the gospel in its complete form, it would be sometime later. So now Mark is saying, just like he knows his audience is not just Jews, because he's already breaking down things for Gentile readers, he's going to do it again. And what he's going to say is a tiny little sin, but it's so radical, most legalists and Pharisaical type folks today simply cannot handle it. All foods clean. They cannot handle this verse. Thus he declared all foods clean.
Didn't say that. Didn't say anything about foods. See how he crowbarred that in? Mark's the 7th chapter says nothing about food. It's talking about dirt on the hand. That dirt goes into your system and comes out the backside. So how do you come to the conclusion that all foods are clean? Anyway, let's stop right here, and I'm going to close with this. If that's the case, let's go with that. Let's go with Vocab just said. If that's the case, then the disciples, Peter and the rest of them, got the oh, so we can eat pork now. We can eat eel. I always wanted to know what it tastes like to eat catfish. Let's go to Acts. Y'all already know I'm going to go. 10. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius. And by the word Cornelius goes back to the word means kernel, like it means a seed kernel. Like you when you pop popcorn, you put a kernel, which is the seed, in the heat, and it expands and becomes popcorn. So the word Cornelius and IUS is a suffix in the ancient world. A lot of the names were ended with the IUS, the suffix IUS. So let's just take that IUS out. Let's go to Cornell. Cornell means kernel, which is seed. It means seed. A centurion. A centurion is what? An officer of 100 men. Centaur or cent means 100. He was an officer of 100 men. So he was a high-ranking, a somewhat high-ranking, he was a man of authority. He had 100 men under him. It says of the band called the Italian band, because you had Israelites living in all over the place, including Italy, including Rome. Read Acts 18. It says a devout man and one that feared the Most High. This ain't talking about no Edomites. With all his house, which gave much alms to the people of Israelites and prayed to the Most High always. Didn't describe an Edomite. There ain't no such thing as a righteous Edomite. He saw in a vision, evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of the Lord coming to him. Okay, so this Edomite was so devout that the Lord said, look, I was wrong about these Edomites. I made them be wicked. This man's showing me nothing but righteousness. You see how fucking stupid that sounds? Any of you Israelites out there that teach that Cornelius is an Edomite is a fucking dumbass. Okay? Any Israelite out there, one Wesley, that's teaching that Cornelius is an Edomite, is a dummy, is a dumb fuck. You haven't grown, and you're probably not of the elect. And I believe there are Israelite groups, former one Westers, that teach this nonsense. Because you know what, you become masses of regurgitation. Because the elders, our elders in the past, the 7, they went off on a lot of things. It says he saw in a vision eventually about the 9th hour of the day. You should ask a Christian, when is the 9th hour of the day? Is it 9 o'clock? I don't know. An angel of the Lord, the power, coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. This right here proves it. Can an angel speak Greek and Latin? Yeah, because he said Cornelius. He knew his name. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, "What is it, Lord? Other one, my Lord," like a landlord, so somebody over me, and sir. And he said unto him, "Thy prayers and thy alms are come up for a memorial before the Most High." Basically, if that's the case, if he's an Edomite, when the Most High created Esau to be the wicked, he messed up. Come on, man. It says, and now send men to Joppa and call for one Simon, whose surname is Peter, which is the head disciple. He lodged with one Simon a tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. And when the angel which spake unto Cornelius was departed, he called two of his household servants. He had servants, and a devout soldier of them that waited on him continually. If you was a centurion, you were upper middle class. You were living good. You had servants in your house. You know, you were rich. You know, it says, well, you was very well off, upper middle class. And when he had declared all these things unto them, he sent them to Joppa. On the morning as they went on their journey and drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. When is the 6th hour? And he became very hungry and would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance and saw heaven open, and a certain vessel descending unto it, as it had been a great sheet knitted at the four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And there came a voice to him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." But Peter said, "Not so, Lord, sir, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." So he saw unclean animals. And eventually, what was it, 2 or 3 times, thrice, it was 3 times, then it was taken back up, right? So let's jump the gun. Now it says, while Peter doubted in himself what this vision which he had seen should mean. So he knew the Lord didn't say, "Go ahead and eat these unclean animals." Now, why did Peter make the statement? Let me find it again. 14th verse. But Peter said, "Not so, Lord. I'm not going to eat that. Those are unclean animals. For I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." Why? Because he was under the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. So now shouldn't he say, "Yeah, I'll eat it"? Because I remember when the Lord, explained to us that you can eat anything. You see how stupid that is? That shows you that this guy, Vocab Malone, he doesn't understand the scriptures, man. And I hope he watches this video. He doesn't understand the scriptures, because Peter wouldn't make this statement. If Peter ate with unwashing hands, and there was a whole big thing with the scribes and the Pharisees, mainly the Pharisees, and then the Lord explaining, according to what Vocab said, you can eat at the bottom line, you can eat anything. You can eat anything. Which is bullshit, man. Because Peter wouldn't make this statement. He wouldn't make this statement in the 14th verse, Acts 10 and 14. But Peter said, "Not so, sir, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." Well, then you're going against the Lord, according to Vocab Malone. Anyway, please forgive me for going so long, but give me your comments and whatever. And I'm pretty sure there'll be responses to this video. But it shows you that's why so many of our people are leaving the church, because their number one reason is the church doesn't have answers for them. We giving them all the answers. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.